we're all Texas fans here, so some of you may not like it. Is Texas the most overrated team in the SEC? I say this because I have my Athlon magazine sitting in front of me. There's a lot of things in this magazine that are interesting, including team rankings, and we'll get to that later. But overall, Gerald, what do you think about just the media circle around Texas this year? Do they deserve to be ranked number one in a lot of these preseason polls? Do they deserve to be national championship favorites? If not, why not?
I think I'm trying to like not to talk out of both sides of my mouth here because there's a lot, right? There's a lot to unpack, and that's always like I ramble, right? But first, I think it's a product of not knowing who anybody is this year, as far as like we don't know who really any of these elite teams are going to be. There's so many questions all over the country, right? What's Georgia going to look like? What's Alabama going to look like? Clemson, Penn State are probably the only two schools that I think we know for sure what they're going to look like this year. And even Penn State has some questions. You know, they lost their elite tight end that basically touched the ball on every play, right? Like there are still questions there. And so I think part of why Texas is kind of bubbling to the surface is because there are so many questions about everybody this year. There's so many questions about quarterbacks. There's so many questions about reloading. There's a lot of uncertainty. But the one thing that I think folks are certain of is how well Texas has stacked these recruiting classes and the positions at which these players are at, right? And so part of that is like the Arch Manning of it all. I think people are ready to see Arch Manning ascend. I think people feel pretty confident about how Texas has recruited on both sides of the ball. And so that's part of the thing. But by virtue of Texas being number one in so many freaking polls, so many things, like it's hard to say that anybody else is more overrated than Texas because Texas hasn't really done like much on the field to prove that they're the number one rated. Like I have hated all of this conversation, like On Three, Ari Wasserman, all of those guys have Texas picked to win the national championship. Like it's very weird to me. I started to come around a little bit more now that I'm seeing like the mathematical models that like Texas. DFB Winning Edge put out their numbers last week, had Texas number one. I'm starting like, do I believe? Like I always make fun of people for arguing with math when they get mad at these like mathematical models. Like, oh, you have a bias. Like, first of all, every mathematical model is going to have a bias based upon what the person that made it values. Like that's part of life. But ultimately, like I'm somebody that makes fun of people who argue with the mathematical models. And a lot of them are starting to have Texas in similar positions to what the people have Texas. And I'm of a vintage that knows how overrated people find, like people overrate Texas annually. Right. It's just part of what it is. But the math doesn't always bear it out. The math is starting to bear it out. And that's the thing that I'm like, do I actually want to buy into this? I've still been hurt too many times. Again, I was around, I lived in Oklahoma for the Charlie Strong years. So like that was terrible. It's like, I'm still not ready to buy in all the way. But now that like the mathematical models are starting to bear it out, I'm like a little less skeptical.
Yeah, I think what I've come to realize is like every season is its own separate entity instead of I kind of in my mind lump them all together and think, well, this team won the national championship, so this means this team can't. And what I mean by that is Texas does have a lot of questions, but this is its own separate year. If I'm not putting Texas up against the 2019 LSU Tigers right now,
no.
I'm not putting Texas up against last year's Ohio State team that won the national championship. I'm putting Texas up against this field currently and what we know about this field currently. And right now, I think this field's very questionable. Like we talked about on this channel, you know, 7 of the top 10 teams in odds are replacing their quarterback. When we get into these Athlon rankings as our next topic, we're going to go through the top 10 in some of these and realize, man, they have a lot of question marks as well. So when you look at the talent on the roster, what is coming back, the coaching staff and everything, I think Texas should be in the top 4 to win the national championship. Personally, in my mind, I have 4 teams right now that I'm going to decide who's going to win the national championship. Could that expand? Absolutely, it could. For right now, I'm going to have Texas, Clemson, Penn State, and Alabama. Those are my 4 teams I'm going to decide from to who's going to win the national championship. So we'll have to see. And it's going to be very interesting whether or not Texas can do that. Again, do they have a lot of hype? Do I think some of it is a little bit too much? Yeah, I think for Arch Manning, it is too much. That's the one thing I keep realizing. Like all these teams, like people, Joel Klatt has him second, I believe, quarterback rankings. Someone else had him either 2 or 3. Athlon, I'll just skip to this real quick, has him number 1, the Texas room as a whole. So yes, do I think that gets a little bit too much pub? Yeah, but I think Texas as a whole is properly rated in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's, and again, shout out to our friend in the chat, David Keith Williams. I almost said your name wrong, but like, Texas has recruited really well. It's like what I said off the top, right? Like there's so many questions around so many teams this year, and Texas has loaded stock in every spot. Now, do we know what they will do on the field? Have we seen them? No, but from a talent perspective, we haven't seen the blue chip ratio, but Texas is going to be one of the top 3 teams. Probably looking at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Oregon. Like those are going to be probably your top 5, right? And so Texas is in there. So I think, David, you're right. Like there is something to be said for Texas being in the top 10 in every position group just based on talent. Again, I'm somebody that likes, I need to see what you can do on the field because I've been burned by Texas recruiting classes being really good and really top heavy in the past, but I don't think these classes in these rooms are constructed in the same way. But again, I've been hurt before. I don't know if I'm ready to be hurt again, but ultimately I think you're right. Like there are so many talented players in each and every position room for Texas that it's hard to feel like they're not they're not appropriately rated in some way. But again, my PTSD won't let me say that with my whole chest, and I apologize to everybody watching.
No, I think that's fair. And this is interesting. The 2025 Texas Longhorns offense absolutely cannot be compared to the 2019 LSU offense. However, the 25 Texas defense can legitimately be compared to any defense in recent history. I would disagree with that because we haven't seen it yet. I can't compare something that I haven't seen. And last year's defense was really good. I'm not even sure they're going to be that good because let's be honest here. This team last year allowed 8 touchdown passes and 21 or 22 interceptions. Like that's historically a really, really good pass defense. So let's say the pass defense takes a step back, but the rush defense takes a step up. You basically break even. Do I think we can be better than last year's defense? Yeah, I do think we could be, but I need to see it first.
It's hard for me to say that a defense losing Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba is going to be good as last year's unit. Like that to me, like, and again, Texas has recruited really, really well. They've got a ton of guys there. Like you lose the Thorpe Award winner and you're going to take a step back. It is what it is. And that's not a shot at the guy still on campus. Jahdae Barron probably should have been in the Thorpe conversation the previous 2 years and just people overlooked him. And so finally last year he got the hype that he deserved and won the award. Like you lose the guy who's the best defensive back in college football. You're going to take a step back. You lose a guy like Andrew Makuba who came in and was a trendsetter who completely knocked out Georgia's quarterback in that game, right? Like that is a guy who you have to replace. Now, there is talent. The guys on the field, the guys in the locker room are supremely talented. And I think they can live up to that. But like you said, Matthew, we haven't seen him yet. So that's hard for me to fathom.
David Keith Williams, I completely agree with this. I think what stands out now is that Coach Sarkisian and his coaching staff develops the roster and they also maximize the production of the roster. Maximize the production, I'm not going to say they're 100% on but developing, I completely agree with that 100%. Like we have the most NFL draft picks the last 2 years. So I don't think you can argue that. I do think there's times where they misuse some players. I like last year, I think they figured it out late because they figured out in the Ohio State game with Jaden Blue. That guy should have been used. Like he should have had 70 catches last year. He's a total mismatch with linebackers, and we just got on that train, in my opinion, way too late. And we used him as a running back, and he had issues fumbling the ball when he was a running back. Out of the backfield catching, he honestly didn't. It was most of his fumbles came when he was a running back. Yeah,
and I think you're absolutely right. And I think the thing that always jumps out to me, again, I'm of a certain vintage. I'll say it like that. The gray hairs in my chin are showing up, right? Like I think comparing like Anthony Hill and Malik from a few years ago, right? Comparing those two guys, similar stories, elite in-state linebackers, right? Texas lands them both, and you're seeing the divergent trajectories, right? Where Anthony Hill has continued to be better, continue to grow, continue to be the elite guy. Folks are looking at him as one of the top linebackers in the country. Again, Texas fans enjoy every snap because he will be gone after this year. So enjoy every snap. But like ultimately, like when you look at those guys, right, like comparing those two similar ranked, like elite guys, top guys in the state, like two divergent. Texas is doing a better job of developing kids than we've seen in 10 or 15 years.
Okay. So We have to answer this question. If Texas is not the most overrated team in the SEC, who is the most overrated team? That's how we'll leave this discussion.
I was not prepared for that, and this feels unfair. I don't know where they're ranked, but like I feel like LSU maybe, because I just don't trust their coaching staff in that way. Like they outthought themselves at a lot of moments last year, and so like they were good when they ran the ball, and then they just didn't. And so like I just don't trust that coaching staff. So I think that's probably like again, gun to my head, zero research. That's where I put my flag. Again, LSU fans come from me in the comments, whatever, but like that's where I'm going.
I completely agree. That's the team I was on. So a lot of these national rankings, they're overranked. And according to Athlon, they're the seventh best team in the country. I do not see that at all with them. I think offensively, they are what they have been the last 2 years, which is an elite offense. And defensively, when are you going to be a good defense? Like, you haven't been a good defense under Brian Kelly the whole time he's been there. So until you show me that, that's the thing with Texas. At least Texas has shown me things of like, oh, well, they showed me this, so they can be this. LSU has not shown me they can be a good defense under Brian Kelly. So guess what? I don't think they're going to be a good defense under Brian Kelly. And I actually think it's a bad thing. I know it sounds crazy, but I said it once he got hurt last year when I was doing the SEC show at the Voice of College Football. Harold Perkins coming back healthy is actually a bad thing for LSU because they have no idea how to use him, and they base their whole defense around him. So that is a bad thing. Until they figure out how to use him, which is just let him go, let him be free, and let him create havoc, they're not going to be good defensively.
It's so wild to me that like that player, he's such a positionless player. Like, how do you utilize him? And you know, Kelly's system and his preferences are not having those kind of just like go find ball, see ball guys. So it's a very weird mismatch there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, they were better with Whit Weeks. When Whit Weeks was in at Harold Perkins' position, which is middle linebacker, guess what? They were a much better defense. You can look at the numbers. They were horrific with Harold Perkins at middle linebacker, and they were bad with Whit Weeks at middle linebacker, or average at least. So that team, until they become like a top 40 defense, they're not going to win anything of significance. And right now they were like 60, 70th in most categories last year. So they're going to have to prove another 15, 20% for me to believe they can win the SEC, which is they're third right now, which means you're in the running. If you're in the top four in the SEC, you're in the running to win the SEC. And I will address this troll comment. Texas needs to be better. A&M best in the state right now. No. We proved that last year when we played them. No.
We're winning June national championships again in College Station. It's fine.
Yeah, they tend to do that. 8-4 always does that. But I can blame Texas for the Felix kid, but at some point the bag must be dropped on UT. Listen, Penn State Sports Talk. I know, I've seen you. You're trolling. I know. Perkins playing linebacker. Yeah, thank you for the comment. But I know you're trolling. Perkins playing linebacker. I mean, yeah, he's going to play middle linebacker, I think, still. Until they figure out how to use him, I stand by that. I don't think LSU is going to be very good.